Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 119 of the Titanforge Podcast. I'm Dratnos, joined by Tettles and Trell as always, and this week's special guest is Greg. Hello, welcome.
Hey, what's up? Thanks for having me.
Good to have you here. Greg, those of you who follow him on Twitter, you don't, or on Twitch, you also don't.
Yeah, good luck.
Well, I follow him on Twitch.
Same.
Yeah, underground Twitch.
Oh,
Yeah.
is this one of the dorky style underground Twitch accounts?
I just like Trell asked me for it, and I was like, I don't know. I haven't turned it on in a while. Not worth plugging.
Fair enough. Anyways,
I usually pop up in other people's chats.
I respect that. I respect that a lot. This week we are going to talk with you about something that you do, which I don't do. Tettles doesn't do. Trell flirts with and may
Sometimes.
do even more this coming patch, which is doing high-end content, particularly high-end Mythic Plus, without doing Mythic rating. So I think this is going to be a topic that should interest a lot of people, because there are a lot of people like you, right, that like that sort of part of the game, the high keys, the hard content, but don't want to Mythic raid for a number of different reasons, which I'm sure you'll go through some of them. I understand a lot of them personally, so should be pretty good to talk about both the challenges, the ways to do it though, and all that kind of stuff. We also have news to talk about. We have 9.2 news, bunch of stuff that's happened in the past week, bunch of stuff that's come out about all kinds of different parts of the 9.2 stuff, conduits, tier sets, those sorts of things. That'll be later in the episode that we'll talk about that. You can see, if you're on YouTube, there'll be the chapters down below that you can go and find where that's at. My guess is around 32 minutes in, but we'll see. We'll see where that ends up being.
What a guess!
Prepare to be
Actually,
amazed.
27.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We got some predictions coming out. We'll see. We'll see where it lands.
Well,
We also
do you
have-
edit it? Can
I
you
do.
rig this?
So I do edit the podcast, but edit is used in a. Anytime I have to do any actual editing, it's because something has gone horribly, horribly wrong. Usually, it just chop off the front and back of the thing and put it up. Sometimes something horrible goes on in the middle. For instance, sometimes Discord crashes for me. That's been happening, so hopefully that doesn't happen this time. We'll see. Okay, so we also have some esports news. The announcement that came out today for MDI fans, which, Greg, you've have some MDI experience under your belt, right? To help people maybe get to know you a little bit better. When's the last time you played an MDI?
Yeah, so I've done 2 MDI Cups in my career. The first was in Legion with Tettles here. I think it was, what is it, MDI
Good
2?
times.
That was the MDI. It was the second MDI. Yeah.
Yeah, back in Legion, MDI 2. Those are some good times. We had a unfortunate circumstance with our 5th member, and had to go on with 4. So yeah, you've heard that on and off. And the second
I'm not
time was
bitter.
yeah, nothing wrong with that.
I remember watching you guys. I didn't know either of you at the time, but I was like, oh my god, they have a chance of winning this with 4 members, and they were like doing the first boss of Upper Kara, and then it took them twice as long as the other group to kill the boss, and I was like, never mind.
Well, our team was unironically good.
Yeah, it was a good team.
It was funny after the first Upper Kara, we were just seeing how the chat was like memeing NA. And so I reached out to the other team and I was like, tell me your best map. Like, we'll choose that for you. And, maybe we can alleviate some of the memeing that's happening and you guys can just really destroy us on this map. Just to try to save face a little bit. Anyway, the second one was, I believe, season 2. It was the reaping season in BFA. I played with Revofevi, old name there from Legion. Hunte, Olsen, and Fired Up. That was a really, really fun team to be a part of. If anybody remembers Olsen or played with Olsen, that guy's hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing like throughout all practice, all matches. But that was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, we had a stray attendant in Shrine of the Storm run and pull the elemental, and that was the end of our cup.
Yeah.
Oh, that's how it happened. I couldn't remember. Yeah, that elemental was just like,
also-
well, we're dead.
Fired Up also got launched off the ledge, didn't he?
That did happen as well, yeah.
Yeah, that was fired up before his I think before his limit days or right at the start of them or something. He started in limit in Crucible of Storms, but
Yeah.
Mhm.
he did MDI before that several times though. He did MDI with a guildie of mine back in Legion. Always says he instantly knew that was the best player he'd ever played with.
Do you know the lore on that? He didn't have a microphone during the whole entire MDI, and he bought a mic for the global finals tournament.
That is crazy. Yeah. The other
That is
fired
how-
up lore
that
I
is how good
know
I'm fired up
is his first day of raid at limit was Mythic or his first Mythic raid day with them, Mythic Crucible Storms Restless Cabal. He was like 30 minutes late, and at the end of the day they all were still like positive on him despite being 30 minutes late for his first Mythic progression day. Anyways, stories aside, the esports announcement that came out was for 2022, which there's a lot going on in here. Prize pool stuff, AWC stuff, classic arena tournament stuff. You can read all about that if you would like, but to focus specifically on the MDI side of things, the big points are like the group format still being in there, pretty much the same MDI format, except with I think a slightly different and less opaque seeding into the global finals thing going on, and then the Great Push as in a bigger fashion, multi-weekend mini season of Great Push, awarding a further 210K in prizing after the global finals, and some kind of LAN tournament as well, targeting a return to an in-person event in summer that encompasses both AWC and MDI championships, although this language implies they're not certain, which I don't think anybody reasonable is certain about any in-person event this far in the future. But yeah, I'm pretty hopeful.
We do have some other information. So dungeon pool updates. The Tazvesh wings will be included in the map pools for season 3. So
As
definitely
expected,
you can go
right?
test
Yeah.
those on the PTR. Map bans are returning. Each team will get 1 map ban per series, and the first map of each series cannot be banned.
Right. So there will be bans, but since
Nice.
you can't ban the first map, you will still see every dungeon, right? Because they'll put each dungeon as a first map. Probably, we assume. I mean, obviously,
This allows us to see Tazvesh, I think, as opposed to it just getting banned perma.
right? Because you remember when they banned Junkyard like 95% of the time or something
Oh,
that it was
yeah.
up.
As they should have.
Yeah.
As they should have.
Or you just ban whatever.
Seed
had,
Seed of
like,
the triumvirate as well.
Yeah, seed of the triumvirate.
Would have banned that.
Yep, that's an instant ban.
I always remember the parse culture versus nerfed seed of the triumvirate from back in the day.
And prize pool stuff. The prize pool for each group got up to 30,000 total, and they're going to clearly outline seeding criteria for global finals.
Yeah, that's I think a lot of the pain points addressed there, improved. I'm glad there's going to be more Great Push as well. I think multiple weekends of that. I mean, I basically I think the Great Push is the best thing ever. And actually the Last Stand tournament I also think is the best thing ever. I think I love those formats a lot. So I'm glad there's going to be more Great Push, and the Last Stand is returning as well. Okay.
How much bigger is the prize pool than the last set of tournaments? Because like 210,000 seems like at least double that it was in the last.
So that's the Great Push prize pool. Great Push didn't have a big prize pool the last 2 times it's been run, because it just had like a cup prize pool, because it was just its own mini event thing. So
It's like
this
20K, right?
Yeah, this is more than 10 times the previous
Oh, yeah.
Great Push prize pool.
Way bigger.
I don't know if they say exactly how much the regular MDI prize pool is. They say over $1.8 million in prizing across all 3
300.
programs.
300 for the whole entire.
So the
for all of it.
same for the season, and then just this extra for the new Great Push here.
Yep. That's what
Yeah.
it looks like. Which is good.
Over $1.8 million. That's I love the language. It's very precise amount, and then the word over. Also, yeah, I don't know. Classic thing should be interesting too. Should be very cool and fun to watch the classic arena tournament.
I'm so tired, man.
I can't wait until we get Wrath of the Lich King classic arena.
Did you do arena back then?
No,
Oh, okay.
but I want to watch it. I don't know. I hope there's pre-nerf Death Knights for at least a little bit of that. But I guess there probably won't be. But I hope there are. Anyways, let's move on to talking about doing high-end content without mythic rating. So I guess let's talk a little bit about, I guess, the terms here. What do we mean by doing high-end content? What do we mean by not rating, not mythic rating? Like what are the things you're trying to do? What are the things you avoid doing entirely? And what are the things you like sometimes will do but are not focused on?
Sure. So what I mean by not raiding is not being in a guild that has regularly scheduled raids. And that's pretty much my only hesitancy with raiding. I have nothing against the content. I actually think it's pretty fun. I used to raid throughout Legion. But I just got to a point in my life where I wasn't really willing to commit, 2 to 4 nights a week, every night consistently. Even there's weekend options, weekly options, just none of those were particularly appealing to me. Like, what if I want to go do something on a Saturday or a Tuesday or whichever day is the raid day? I just didn't want to be constrained in that. It's a game I feel like I should be able to log on whenever I want to and play. And it's totally understandable that guilds have schedules, right? Like they have to be able to field a roster and make regular progress with the same group of people. So it makes total sense, but it just doesn't really fit with how the game fits into my life. So that's what I mean by without rating. Of course, there's things like overpowered trinkets or in the next raid tier sets that I'll do my best to pug, heroic. So like actually all of my characters right now, I primarily play tanks at the moment. I have a few alt DPS that I've made. But the Aegis trinket off the 9 is ridiculous. So
Overpowered trinket right there.
But
yeah, pugging heroic the 9 has become a weekly activity of mine. But the thing is I can do it whenever, I don't have to log in at 7 p.m. on Tuesday and pug the 9 heroic.
Did you pug Sun King Salvation for the cheat death trinket over and over again too?
Of course I did. Yep.
There's almost always a trinket like that for tanks, and that's like one of the biggest selling points for rating for me as a tank player.
But you're happy with just the heroic versions of all of those, right? Even the 9, which is, theoretically puggable-ish, or like mythic alt run, unscheduled time. Is that something have you tried it all to get the mythic version, or are you just happy totally with the 239?
Yeah, I mean once Cross Realm like Hall of Fame is finished and Cross Realm rating is opened up and people are pugging first 3, the beginning of the week groups tend to be better than the end of the week groups. But I have no hesitation to trying for the mythic version. So I'll do a first 3, but it's not my top priority. Usually if I log in and people want a key, then I'm down to key. It's not that I'm necessarily happy with the heroic version. Obviously I'd like to have the best stuff. But having the heroic version is usually in my head, it's like I'm going to count how many times I would have died, or if that I did die and I would have lived if I had the mythic one. And there's not a whole handful of those that I can count on. I could have just played better. That's something, large theme across the game. People are like, oh, if I only had better gear, I would have done this. Or like play is really, really important.
So do you think that's only a thing because you're a tank though? Because as a DPS, very throughput oriented typically, right?
Right. So that's actually why I've been playing tanks this expansion. Well, it didn't start off like that. So I came back to the game BFA Season 4. So I played in the MDI BFA Season 2 and then quit after that. Those two may or may not have been related to each other. There's a lot of practice that goes in, of course, you guys know. But yeah, I came back BFA Season 4, and if any of you have ever taken a break, or anybody that's listening has ever taken a break and then you come back, you kind of can see how people you used to play with before, like, oh hey, what's going on? I know you were good, you might be still, but unproven at the moment. So you kind
Yeah,
of have to like,
they like don't think you're good anymore. I've had that too. You have to prove it over time. It's
Well,
so
because
annoying.
and you've been on the other side as well, right? Where your friend comes back after 2 years and is completely washed, right? I don't know.
yeah. So
I've
anyway,
seen both
BFA
sides of it.
season 4, I came back and I was playing Havoc Demon Hunter in season 2, and or for the MDI. Actually, I was playing Rogue for that because they're insane. But
Yeah,
Havoc
season
Demon
2.
Hunter on live, but came back, and yeah, it was super hard to get into groups as a DPS. So I was like, you know what, it's going to be a lot easier to build a group if I'm the tank. So I just started tanking, and then Prot Warrior was, of course, insane and really fun season 4. So that was great. And then moving into the new expansion, I was like, I'll keep this rolling. I'll try all the new tanks, see what I like, and just start to like rebuild the network essentially, or get back into good graces, or however you want to put it, with people I used to play with. And then I just really liked all the control you have. I like to kind of like organize things and create routes, and make it so pretty much anybody who's plugging into the group, I can just kind of like tell them what to do, and things will operate more or less smoothly. Um, so the tank role kind of naturally fit me for that. And then as far as this undergeared or no rating gear thing is related, I felt like, having played at a really high level as a DPS and a couple MDIs and stuff like that, I understand how important it is to, have maximize your throughput. When I was raiding, I always wanted to like, do the most damage, parse well. We all have had that phase, or maybe we're still in the phase. But so I just knew that I would be griefing my group less by playing the tank without fully optimized gear, and in this current patch, Dom shards. We'll probably get to that later. But yeah, so season 1 it was fine. You could just do RBGs if you really wanted max eye level gear, which I did. And it was particularly good for tanks because you got well itemized gear. I did pug RBGs to 2100 on 4 alts.
Ooh.
Would not recommend, but at least
That
it was
sounds
possible.
horrible.
Yeah, it was not great, but at least it was possible. It's not possible right now.
And that's not like a regular thing too. That was last season. RBG farming was much more necessary to gear a tank than it was in any other season I know of.
PvP in general was just super OP because even if you were a rating main, right? Like week 1, 2400 for 233 weapons was really big.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a wild time for itemizing, but that was a source of the mythic items without the time commitment, right? Like, you could RBG for 2 hours anytime you want in a way that you can't really mythic raid for 2 hours anytime you want, right? During the week, so makes sense. How that is nice when that's available. So how about systems like shards and sockets? How do you handle those sorts of systems whenever they show up in a patch? Korthia and the entirety of Korthia type stuff as well.
Yeah, so this patch, I started out playing Bear because it was looking like Bear was going to be insane, which it's very good, but turned out to be a lot more balanced on the tank playing field as the patch went on. Anyway, started out as Bear, didn't interact with the new systems at all, didn't farm any Korthia rep. I think I did like 2 chapters of the quest line, and like, I don't know, this does, like, I don't really want to spend my time doing this.
This sounds like such a great game you were playing while the rest of us
Yeah,
were
no,
in Korthia.
I had a great time.
Dude, honestly, hold on. I think Greg's figured it out. We're just
Yeah.
all idiots. He's enlightened.
Yes, I didn't interact with the system at all. I think my Bear is still like tier 1 or tier 2, because I just haven't really touched it that much. But I was keying on that thing, and I was just getting my weekly box, 252 out of the weekly box. I think I did a 3 of 10 heroic pug like a month in or something, and got the was it the eye chest with the haste first chest, and then I had that socketed with the shard of Rev rank 1 because that comes off the world boss, and that was the extent of my Dom sockets on that thing. And I think I got to, that character's still sitting at like 2780. IO because I was
So
doing
you
up
even
around like
got-
26 or 25s.
You never even got sharded gear, the shield shard
No,
with your bear at all. Just the
no,
leech shard, and that's it.
yeah. So my bear, I think, is like 247 or 248. I did get the 9 trinket my first try in heroic, so like
Okay, that helps a lot.
that's how you do it. You should try to do that next time you're going for a trinket. Just like get it to drop first try.
Yeah.
I'm
I should
taking
have saved that for tip of the week.
taking good notes here.
So
Yeah.
I didn't get a single Aegis trinket on my main till like 3 months into the patch, and I actually just straight up couldn't do some pulls because I was playing on off meta tank until I got that trinket, and it was game changing once I finally got it, which is usually the case, but that was one of the bigger instances of trying to get the OP trinket.
Dude, I remember diamond laced refracting prism from Opulence. I remember that thing being
That was really good too.
like going back a tier later or whatever, still trying to get one of those things. Yeah. Yeah.
It's powerful.
So okay,
If
so that
there's
was
not anything super compelling from this next raid, that might end up being what's going on now.
that was how your bear worked out. So since then, have you played something else, and have you engaged with shards more or?
Yeah. So as anybody who's ever played bear will probably realize, it's incredibly boring. You might find fun in, I don't know, being able to switch forms. The most fun part is the Moonkin stuff. You like open up on a boss with your heart convoke and tell your demon hunter not to die instantly, and then they get mad at you because you have no thread. And yeah,
To quote
Yeah,
Greg,
how was-
Psycho, I don't have threat here. Don't hit this mob.
just hit
It's-
blur, please. My convoke's almost done.
How was
Any-
Threat as an undergeared bear playing with like fully decked out mythic raiders, especially like weeks 3 through 6 of the season when they have a huge gear advantage over you?
Yeah, so I was playing with like Psycho and Evade in the beginning of the season, and they obviously cleared the raid pretty early. So I think Evade was like 254 on the 3rd week or the 4th week, like
Yeah.
something insane. Yeah, and I had to play Karain for first strike. It became painfully aware, obviously, like as a couple season tank player, I'm aware of the importance of using taunt, not just to take threat off of somebody who already has threat, but
But
pre-taunting
initially
to
taunting
generate,
the burst
yeah,
target.
to generate extra threat on that target. But you know, even given all of those things, they're gonna rip sometimes, and thankfully, demon hunters can at least like blur. But yeah, the way demon hunters built is just like a recipe for disaster for tanks with low threat like bears.
They need an MD.
I mean, there's a bunch of specs like that this patch. I mean, I don't know if you ever played with Arcane Mages much or Fury Arms
Warriors. Yeah.
Like, I played with both of those the entire season, and it was terrible. And I even had full mythic gear. Like, I still would lose threat constantly on multiple targets.
Yeah. Often I would find myself having to deploy the scale on pull just for threat during my
same.
first strike window, just to like make sure it crits or like hope that it crits, so that I'll have that initial threat. Anyway, kind of got sidetracked there, but I switched to Paladin because Bear was boring. And Paladin looked super fun. Obviously, Andy started crushing it on Paladin. I was like, oh, if this is viable, like this is something that's always looked like so much fun. So yeah, I got that thing geared up. I think I just mostly pugged. That's another thing about being a tank is you can list your key and the group will fill way faster. I know that common recommendation is if you're playing like an off spec or an off meta DPS spec, just to like list your own key and invite your own people. But it is much harder to fill a group starting from a DPS position. Like
Yeah,
you'll
that's true.
need to bring your friend who's a healer, a friend who's a tank. And as a designer by trade, a UI designer, I often wonder if it's something attributed to the little icons, like the little DPS icon is red and the other two are blue, and so people just scan for the blue icons and ignore all the red ones.
You're probably partially right. I bet that is true.
Yeah, but anyway, getting that thing geared up, again, didn't interact with any of the systems until 915. I think it was the same situation where I got like some heroic gloves and I put one socket into that, but it was a rank 1 because I didn't have any tier or research. Yeah, I didn't have much research to upgrade those, or the embers to upgrade it. That system is crazy.
That system is awful.
It's so great.
Yeah.
Love it so much.
Yeah, but I was like, I already did this like decently enough on one tank. I guess I don't need to interact with it. I can just, I don't know, kite slightly more. I don't know, play around. Like I said, play is really important, and you can acknowledge that you're maybe less geared. And so if you watch somebody on stream, like if you pull up Andy's VODs or whatever and be like, oh, okay, Paladin can live this, just face tanking it all. Acknowledge that there's a 10 item level difference there. Maybe don't sit and face tank the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, since then, since 915, I've started actually like farming rifts aggressively and getting tier 6 and getting no, I know that you're making a weird face, Tuddles, but it's because I made a Windwalker and I was like, I can't throw intentionally on a DPS. So I need to try to at least like rank up some of these shards because Windwalker is broken and I played Windwalker in the past. So I was like, let's try this out. So that thing is still like 247 or whatever and still blast because it's OP.
So,
Yeah, that's a good point.
what have you been thinking about the Great Vault for this whole entire expansion?
Yeah, I like the vault. Sometimes it's disappointing, sometimes it's not, but it's random, right?
Well, it's probably helped you a lot more, especially having several choices without having to have rated.
Oh, it feels great. I
get.
get an upgrade every week.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because when you're replacing your 246s with, the same thing at 252, the thing though without interacting with Korthia is that I didn't have sockets for a long time. So if I got a socket drop from a dungeon piece, oftentimes it was just
252.
better than the 252 out of the vault. So I'd be like, I guess I'm not taking this 252, or I'll take it just in case I ever decide to interact with this system.
Yeah. That sounds
Yeah.
pretty good to me. I really like that, the mindset of like how do I solve this by playing better versus instead of like how do I solve this with better gear? Because like yeah, okay, obviously at a certain point, the gear helps all the way, right? And at a certain point, you need the gear to do a certain level of stuff, right? And it's true that below that the gear always makes it easier, but it's also true that below that the play also can make it easier, and that's such a fun thing to focus on instead of the gear. I felt this really, really hard with the Mage Tower, where like doing Mage Tower challenges, I would, my chat would just, every time I wiped, the chat would be full of suggestions of like which item I should buy to fix the situation instead of like how to play better or like what mechanic to do differently, because it was always a mechanic you could do differently, or an item you could buy, I guess, in that. And I don't know, I very much find it more fun to focus on the play as well. So I think that's a really good mindset.
On that front, though, like, how do you get your group to be okay with you like lacking gear just as a whole? Because like obviously, I mean, I know the people that you're playing with, they don't actually care, but how do you get to the point where people are okay with your character just being undergeared?
Yeah, so the real answer to that is I don't know if everyone is. Like I played with a lot of people this patch. I know a lot of them have wanted to be like, rank 1 or rank 1 through 10 or something like that. And it hasn't ever been explicitly stated like, hey, I don't want to play with you because of X, Y, and Z. Or like maybe it has nothing to do with that. Maybe they just like have their regular squad they want to game with. Could very well be a factor. But if you're, I'm mostly playing with my friends. Like that's kind of where Mythic Plus lives for me, is like I'd much rather be playing with the people that I'm just like laughing through the whole dungeon with than, I don't know, completely dead serious only calls. Like if somebody dies, it's never funny kind of thing.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I actually,
Yeah.
I was messaging some people because I was like, oh, this title might be a great incentive for me to get people back into keying, because like a lot of people have been taken off because, no content, dead game type of thing. So I've been messaging people like, hey, do you have any interest in getting this title? Like Hunte hadn't played the game. Like a bunch of people have switched over to Final Fantasy. He hadn't played the game in forever, and aside from raid logging, and I was like, hey, you have any interest in this title? So I actually coerced an old Legion squad of Hunte, Drastic, the Windwalker,
Oh, yeah.
Shack
Holy
and Fired
shit.
Up. Yep. Shack and Fired Up, which is already a great time. Just put those two in a room together.
Yeah.
Yeah, coerce both of them, or that squad, into playing on I can't even remember which Tyrant and which Fort Week, but recently we just slammed out anywhere from 25s to 27s and secured that thing. But that was the most fun I've had in keying for a long time. Yeah. I feel like I totally sidetracked it. Oh, you said your question was
Don't remember.
about how do I get people to be okay with it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
those
I don't
people,
know. Just,
those people won't care. The people that
You
you
just-
listed are people who will not care about
I mean,
gear, right?
I think just like, yeah, some people will care, and they're
just
not obligated to
prove-
play with you, right? And okay.
yeah, I mean, you just prove your value as a player. If the value's not there, then they'll go somewhere else. But it's not like if you're bad and you have good gear, the people are like, oh, I'm gonna stick around because your item level's 256 and you'll eventually get better.
Yeah.
No.
Fair.
What I've always seen is like, as a tank, you like if you're under geared on something and your skill is there, you wish that the DPS players and the healers you're playing with can see that, and they can accept that you'll get better gear over time, like you just said. But a lot of times that's not clear. They just want to see like your immediate performance. X tank Andy just did this pull and didn't have to kite at all. Why can't you do that? That's what they want to know. And so I think that is probably the most frustrating part playing as an undergeared tank, even if you can do all the right jobs.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just the whole play thing again is that even something like kiting, if I have to kite 10 seconds earlier in a pull than somebody with 10 more item level, you can kite in a way that's not a DPS loss.
For the most part, yeah.
Depending what's in your group, you've got ROPS and other stuff, and hardly anything's gonna live through your full cycle of cooldowns. Plus, the rotation of ROPS. You usually have a frost mage, so you're just like walking away, and everything's really slow.
I was gonna say you usually have a Windwalker and frost mage, right?
Yeah.
Because
I mean, not actually always.
Dropped twice.
Most of my, aside from this team when I was playing with Draz, most of my experience all expansion has just been playing with friends. Season 1 I was playing with Psycho and Evade, and they both are prolific Demon Hunter mains. So we'd have to get Psycho, or we'd either play double Demon Hunter, and then they're like, why are we doing this? And so Psycho would log on his Windwalker, or Evade would play his Druid or his Mage or something
Survival
like that.
Hunter.
Yeah, Survival Hunter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'd play all sorts of stuff.
Dude,
Sometimes
I bet Evade
Evade
is
would.
so happy about the serve shit right now.
Yeah, sometimes
I'm
he would
sure.
tank. I would play Boomkin season 1.
Dude, okay, so you guys almost qualified for the great push with you playing Boomkin in one of the time trial keys, right? You play like Balance in Spires of Ascension and made Psycho tank that dungeon, right?
Yep. I played Boomy in Spires for the time trials for the first great push. I think we got 7th,
Oof.
Yeah.
where you needed 6th to qualify.
Yeah,
Although
I remember that.
it turned out to be okay. I didn't realize that I had a camping trip the following weekend, so it worked out okay. But it was a lot of fun. We weren't really taking it too seriously, or maybe we didn't have a formal conversation about how seriously everybody was taking it. It was kind of assumed that it wasn't taken very seriously by everyone, but I hope I didn't upset people by having fun with it.
Dad is so mad.
Always furious. He messages me every day. I'll never forgive you for Great Push 1.
All right. Before we move on, one final question that we added to this section that I think people might be curious about as well. What do you do about like gold? Buying consumables, all those sorts of things. Like a lot of us fund that through Mythic raid sales eventually, and that keeps the coffers up. What do you do about gold?
Yeah, so up until like a month ago, I was still living off of dungeon boosts from the beginning of the expansion. Gold dungeon boosts.
Yeah.
Highlight on gold. It's very important.
Those are I remember those have been pretty lucrative back in like BFA, right? Where the back before Galliwix got banned, there was the golden age of Galliwix dungeon boosting. I don't know how lucrative it is these days.
Beginning of the expansion, any sort of boost is through the roof in value. I was looking back at some of my Discord DMs, so like Shaq and I used to just post our own in trade chat and then throw together a squad. but cuts were something like 300k for a 15. It was way up there.
Wait, hold up. Cuts for 300k? That's so much.
Yeah. So much in the beginning of the expansion. Things like Torghast boosts, I had fun doing. I had a Vengeance Demon Hunter in the beginning of the expansion. And Vengeance was very good at Torghast. So those were really fun. Yeah, I pretty much built a little pile and then just used that for consumables and game time up until about a month ago. Things have been rough until I realized that you can sell your Korthite crystals. Probably should have done that way long ago. Would have sold for way more, but
Actually,
Yeah.
the price jumped up back a bit once you could once you could free covenant swap, and once you could scrap legendaries and recrap, but you needed the Korthite crystals to, like, you didn't get that back, but you got the Soul Ash back. The price jumped back up a little bit, so you might have missed a dip. Might have got lucky.
Yep.
Yeah.
So on the account, I'm probably sitting at like 250k. So pretty not rich in the grand scheme of things, but it's enough to buy consumables and whatnot.
For now, I think
For
I go
now,
through
yeah.
like 50 to 100k if I'm playing a lot over the course of a week,
Mhm.
in Mythic Plus specifically. And that's not even like that's not even counting the initial costs of buying legendary gear to make your legendaries on a new character and all that.
Oh,
Mage
that's been a
power.
huge barrier.
Yeah.
With the with like how easy it is to ramp up a new alt in 915, I've been just interested in messing around on stuff, and I can't even afford 262s on all of them. I end up going with like not even 235, because 235 is like the highest Soul Ash one without going Cinders, and for some reason that gray item is really expensive, so I go 225 sometimes on fresh alts just
my
to
God.
just to save the money.
You have enough ash, but you don't want to spend the gold. Yeah, that's rough.
That is the most doomed shit I've ever
That's
heard.
cursed.
Yeah, I was like, man, what if they just had this system where you could buy the gray item or whatever and check it into an armory, and then you just have it forever, and anytime you want to make a plate helm, you just check it out of your armory and make one.
Would you ever feel obligated to buy a raid boost?
No, I would not do that. One, I would never have enough gold for that. Well, maybe at the beginning of the expansion, but same time, beginning of the expansion, raid boosts are going to cost a pretty penny. So yeah, no. If it ever came down to the point where like I needed this trinket from raid, or I couldn't complete a 15 or something like that, I'd probably just quit the game. But like I said, you can
Yeah.
play around stuff like that. Like Charles just wasn't able to do certain pulls until he got his Aegis. That can happen, I guess, if a trinket's really that OP.
Well, I also wasn't playing like a strong tank without the trinket. Like Prop
Sure,
Pally
yeah.
can make things happen without Aegis this patch, whereas Brewmaster really can't in some cases.
Mhm.
It just depends.
It's
on the
actually
patch.
pretty important to prop pally too. Charles and I were doing a run yesterday on his new alt prop pally.
210 Pally.
Trelskadin.
Trelskadin. Yeah.
I remember that.
We-
thing
we
from
ran
the
into
days of
the-
DFA.
We ran into the Narzuda pull, and he just like bricked into the ground. I can't remember what happened. Oh, you forgot to get the orb.
I forgot to pick up the orb. I was like,
And
figuring
then
out-
And then I was thinking about how I normally do the pull, and this was a 20 by the way, and he's 220 item level, so that's challenging content for 220 item level.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how I normally do the pull and group and everything, and what defensives I use. And for a while there, I was using bubble taunt on that pull. Since like once you get pretty comfortable, you don't really need that extra defensive in a lot of the content until you get certain situations. But I was like, yeah, without Aegis, I guess you probably just want to take bubble taunt here. So taking trinkets into consideration as an extra layer of defensive, and then playing
Yeah.
quote unquote suboptimal talents or different talents to make it work for the time being.
Little did Greg know, because he wasn't in Discord with me, but I was screaming for my healer to bark me, but he was on the phone, AFK at the time. That's why I died.
Pulling
Just
needle
saying.
ways, as they say in the business. All right, let's move on to tip of the week segment. My tip of the week is okay, this is extremely cursed, but if there's ever a reputation system that you care a lot about for any reason, and you're an Alliance player, race change to human for the duration of that reputation grind. You probably already know this if you play Alliance. If you play Alliance, you probably already play, some some human anyways, because I don't know, whatever, you boring. But if you don't play Alliance and are cool like me, but you are also cool like me and really care about rep grinds being done 2 days earlier, that's what being cool is all about, of course. What you can do with certain systems, like the upcoming rep, is it appears to be account-wide for the revered unlock of the legendary belt and stuff, which we'll talk a little bit more about later. But my tip of the week is, if it's an account-wide unlock, you can make a human character, even if you're a Horde player, and just do the rep grind on that character. You obviously have to have it be max level and, you know, play it to some extent, right? But you don't actually have to do anything else on it. Just do the rep grind on it, hit that account-wide unlock, and humans with their 10% bonus rep, you know, that turns a 21-day grind into an 18-day grind, something like that. You know, if that turns a 23-day grind into a 20-day grind, that could be the difference right there. If you know, between being super cool and being behind the curve.
Cursed. Okay,
This
so
is super
what do you
cool
do about,
and super cursed.
What do you do about also getting to Exalted on your main character as the next step because you need to get your conduits?
Yeah, you
that's
grind on
another
that
thing.
too. Of course.
Did you saw that item? The 278 conduit item or whatever?
Yeah, that's gonna be
yeah,
big poggers for you, right?
Okay,
if you do
yeah,
the
did you
rep.
see the qualifications for that? It's either any of the Shadowlands Dungeon Hero achievements, which by the way is 1 level 20 for season 3.
Well, I don't know if this is confirmed. That
Okay, maybe not confirmed, but given what we're looking at right now, any Shadowlands Dungeon Hero, which is 1 level 20, or the entire Mythic Raid, or Gladiator in PvP.
they've
of
already
those
confirmed that that's going to
is
be elite,
way,
so you can get an
Okay.
RBG as well. But yeah,
but one of those is a little easier than the other options.
Yeah,
My-
120.
my guess is that
Not
it's
that
not
bad.
120. My guess is that Keystone Hero is going to be a new score achievement next patch.
I mean, I'm going to say it as well. Also, dungeon levels are super inflated this patch. I would suspect that they're probably going to continue to be inflated next patch, and 20s are going to be very easy again.
compared to how hard they were like season 1.
Yeah, season 1 was. I mean, so that's why they're inflated right now. Is because whenever Prideful got taken away and they changed it with Tormented is just like.
But we don't know how hard
strictly
Encrypted is
easier.
going to be for high key.
I mean, I don't think anything could be as time costly as Prideful was, and the dungeon timers are set up around Prideful still. I guess
Yeah.
technically there could be Encrypted could be a 8-minute time sink in a dungeon like Prideful was, but I doubt it.
So will you be doing the rep grind because you need one of these 3 things, right? You need either whatever Keystone Hero means, whether it's just the 120 or whether it's new score achievement or whatever, the Mythic Raid or Elite, so 2400 in one of the PvP modes. But you also need Exalted with the Enlightened, which presumably is going to require a Corthia style thing. Is that going to be something you'll engage with next patch for this reward here?
Yeah, so I don't remember properly, and the screen's really small on the Discord call, but it takes everything all the way up to 278, right? It's not
Yeah.
the whole like Deathbound shard shenanigans where it just upgrades it one at a time.
Yeah, this
And
learns
this is-
all conduits and raises them all to item level 278.
And I'm assuming once you're exalted on one character, you can just go grab this on alts.
That is an assumption that is kind. That would be kind
You're being very generous with that assumption, Greg.
That's
to
copium
Blizzard
right
and to
there.
us.
Well,
Yeah,
I
dude,
might,
that's
you
you're
might
gonna
have
be
to
able
do
to
the
buy-
dungeon hero thing.
My guess
Yeah,
is
not
that this
really
will
all.
not be account wide, but I don't know if they talked about
just
it at
a
all.
fucking way.
Yeah,
It's
not
like
not
saying
account wide
that-
in that you could just mail it, but if you get the dungeon hero on your alt, then you could buy that and
My guess is the Exalted is also going to be something you have to do on your other characters, but I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, well I will
do you
engage with that a single time.
Makes
Do you
sense.
believe that you could send over the infinite augment rune to an alt character? I think the answer is absolutely not. So I don't know why you'd be able to do that with this.
And then I'm mostly relating this to the research thing. How
Right.
if you get tier 6
Yeah.
research on one character, you can now buy, like, you still have
I
to
guess
do
that's
the
fair.
rift farm to get the actual research itself, but you could buy keys from rank 1 instead of rank 4. And
It just
Well, that
seems
was
too
also
good
added in
to
later,
be account
too.
wide for me. Like all conduits to 278, just completely remove the conduit system from the game, right? And just nuke that on your ult. I mean, I think that would be a very cool reward to be account wide, but I don't think it's likely. But we'll hopefully. I mean, that would be awesome, but I doubt it. But hopefully,
I bet we'll see that in the 0.5 patch later on, or as like a hotfix a couple of months in.
That'd be cool. I could see like I would be in favor of there being like a version of this for 252 or for 265 that was easier to get and also account wideable, and then this one still being like a stretch goal. Like, I mean, I would be perfectly happy with this one being account wide. Don't get me wrong, but I'd love to see some kind of compromise as well.
Yeah, I mean, conduits are just a joke anyway. It's not like it actually matters.
It's such a yeah. All right, Trell, what is your tip of the week?
But I pull up the doc, I forgot. Oh, it's the second boss of Necrotic Wake.
Ooh.
So I think we did this a long time ago, but I know a lot of people
Run it
may
back.
not know this that listen to the show. So on the second boss of Wake, there's these waves of ads that spawn, right? And the goal is to kill them before the explosion happens, and that wipes the group basically if anything's alive. But what you'll see in a lot of high-end play is that people will CC one or two of the mages, depending on what CCs they have in the group, and then group everything else on the archer mob and kill it before the explosion. But you can also work around that in other ways. So the CC stops the explosion from hitting the group, period, like the hard CC on the mages, but also individual short CC like stuns and disrupts like Dragon's Breath or Blinding Light from a Paladin. If you hit that at the very last second before they blow up, the ads will die, but they won't hurt the group. So as if they were CC'd.
Yeah, I would say Dragon's Breath and Blinding Light are extremely high skill ways to do, but like, I don't know, even just like leg sweep on those mobs when Final Harvest has like 2 seconds left on its cast is very big.
Cyclone can also be good, but then you're left with the ad. By the way,
interesting.
Oh, it doesn't kill the ad if you cyclone it?
It's immune.
Yeah, Cyclone is the best CC in the game, but it does cooked shit whenever you have to cast on an ability. Or
I
on a
bet
mob.
Banish would do that too if they were
banishable, yeah.
Yeah.
Warning to this also, if you're AoE stunning like leg sweep or chaos nova or even single stunning, because you're worried about the thing dying, if you accidentally kill the thing anyway, it's going to blow up underneath itself. So do not be within that swirly or where that swirly would be if you think the thing might die.
If it's at like 4% health and you're like, are we going to kill this? I better stun just to be safe. It's like, oh, if it actually dies and you're in range to stun, yeah, you're dead. That's a good call. Dude, the other thing on that boss, I think people don't realize if they don't do high keys, is that like one of the highest number damage events on that thing is just if you stand where one of the ads is spawning and it spawns on top of you, that'll kill you as soon as the key level gets even medium high.
The pulsing AoE, the longer that fight goes on, is also stupid high.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons that people like weapon that fight when they, and sometimes. I don't know.
I think that the technology is weapon the last boss and the third boss now. I don't even think you.
Yeah.
I don't think you spear anything before the third boss.
We stopped spearing second boss. We did spear first boss all season because we have no ability to kill the worms from ranged. Like we had to kill them with melee abilities only. So we just tried to make that boss easier. But yeah, the second boss we stopped spearing. We just healed through it.
Yeah, I think my favorite part about weapons in that dungeon is that there are good arguments for spearing all 4 of the bosses, and like teams do spear or use weapons on all 4. I like the last boss as well. Although I like the spear through Varuth, but obviously that not a big deal in high key. But I also think that's fun.
Yeah, we did that for a while. But
yeah, it's so appealing, right? But
yeah, I mean, we just had so much time left over in the key. We just did it clean eventually. Just kill the mob, then pull boss with the powers already active.
Right.
Yeah, along the same vein, I feel like a lot of times people don't really understand how much value you're getting from the Kyrian Goliath orbs. Like those things truck and they heal you.
Oh yeah.
So that's why I don't spear. I mean, obviously, if you don't have a good way to consistently kill the worms and you're not a bear, so you can't mass root them, or you don't have a boomkin to continue mass rooting them, if all of those things aren't the case, then you might commit a spear because the boss will live too long and you'll have worm problems. But assuming one of those things is covered, I'll often do like the 5 soldiers in the middle pack with Gorechop or whatever Gorechop's brother, and just have everyone hug. Yeah, Blightbone. There you go. and just have everyone hug with the Kyrian orbs because it's a minute. Like that's
It
a
basically-
long time.
Yeah.
It'll obliterate the entire pack.
Yeah, if you
As
pull
long
the
as the
boss,
tank can live.
if you pull the boss like right as the group gets orbs, the orbs will last through the first 2 waves of worms, just barely. So you want to get the second wave of worms into the boss's hitbox as soon as you can, and then stun them because they'll just instantly die to the orbs with like 3 seconds left.
I mean, the being stacked up on top of your tank as well also gives them just a stupid amount of healing throughput.
Yep. The thing to figure out before you attempt that pull is make sure it's very well understood which way the breath is going.
Yeah.
True.
At the group,
Yeah.
at the group.
Mm-hmm.
You want to just spin it around, play a little bit of roulette with the breath.
Oh yeah, that definitely happens playing with Fired Up and Shack.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
the Domina Venom Blade stun. Yep, some different things happened
yep.
with that one.
Yeah, dude. In my raid, so on Sylvanas, before we went to phase 2, I was like, hey, did anyone want to do the close your eyes while you run across the bridge challenge? And somebody took me up on it and died and got yelled at. It was.
Officer Dratna said it was okay.
I
Thus
did.
can't get yelled at.
I thought it was funny. I liked it. It's a good challenge. Everybody should try it out. Okay. Let's see. Let's do clip of the week from old Tettles
Oh,
here.
sorry. I
you
do
actually
have
have
a
it.
tip
Okay,
of the week.
poggers.
Yeah, I just didn't write it in the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, so my tip of the week is just in general in this time of like, lull in content. If you are interested in getting better, obviously the most intuitive way to get better is to play the thing you want to get better at in more and more difficult scenarios. But given that a lot of people are taking time off or your regular key group might not be around, other ways that you can improve your skill at one thing, say you're a tank player, one way that you can improve your skill as a tank player is to gain perspective on other classes or other roles. So
True.
with alt catch up, you can mail yourself as long as you have Valor, or even like Conquest. You can basically mail a full set of 210s over to an alt. You can get all 200 conduits with I think the item costs 500 gold, so it's pretty accessible to most everyone. And if
it's a chunk of your funds, but
yeah, if you're if you're on a bit of a budget like myself, you can slap on a 225 legendary from the auction house, maybe 10k or so. Anyway, you can get yourself up and running fairly quickly sure, it's a budget setup, but it's enough and you'll get the legendary right away and you can boost your renown. So it's enough to understand the playstyle of the class, understand the incentives of the class, and then as your other role, you can understand when, say, maybe you make a rogue alt, you might understand the incentives of pulling, more mobs with a larger mob. So like the Shards of Halkias and Halls of Atonement, and understand how their damage profile works and be like, okay, I'm going to make my routing so it's, beneficial to sub-rogues. Similarly, I had a Windwalker alt, and then I made a sub-rogue alt, and now I have much more respect, and I don't bone dust the little ads. I'll get my stacks and everything off the mobs, but then I will Ring of Peace them away while I spin just to maximize the boss damage, and then I'll leave the ads alive for the Frost Mage and sub-rogue funnel.
That's so ethical. I don't know if I know a single Windwalker that would do that.
Yeah, for
Greg
me,
has
it's like,
always been ethical.
oh man, I know the sub-rogue really wants these ads here. I'm gonna kill them all as fast as I can.
I'm gonna instantly kill every single little mob and leave
I'm
the shard
popping
at
all
60%.
cooldowns. I do think that's a really good tip though, because it's particularly for me, it's like this feeling of, I wish this person would do this, that you kind of get in your group. So it's like, man, I wish my healer would pay more attention to me here. Oh man, I wish my tank would slow down for a second here and give me a second to drink. I wish my tank would notice that I had this cooldown or didn't have this cooldown or whatever. And so when you start to realize those things when you're playing something other than your main role, and you start to realize what you're wishing your main role, your main class would do, right? That gives you a huge amount of information, like, that you don't just have to hear from your group, but that you can actually internalize about what to do to make the group more successful. So I think it's a really good thing to try and branch out to, especially, as you said, during a content lull. If you don't want to play your main for the 7th month in a row.
Yeah, and if you've never played a tank before, I know tank is a really daunting role to step into. But as an alt in, your own 10 key or something like that, nobody's going to expect you to have an excellent route. And that's not really the point of doing that, to have a perfect route and to get amazing at tank. It's just to start to understand like what mobs really, really hurt, so that when you're playing your DPS main and you see your tank starting to hop away from the Gargans sprinting full speed at them, maybe, if you're on a Windwalker, you'll take the time to do a little, whatever the dashing kick thing that slows 70%.
Like servant kick.
There you go. Yeah, 70%
Or,
slow, or a little
Vengeful
ROP.
Retreat, as
Yeah,
added to this
Tab disable each of them. Yep.
Yeah, just like maybe you'll think like, okay, they're probably gonna start running at some point here. You don't need to go so far as like track their defensives and be like, okay, they probably, if they were in voice, would call for something from me right now. But just know that, those mobs hit hard and they're not gonna be able to tank them forever on a decent key level.
Those kinds of players that know that information are also instantly more valuable to a tank player, and you can instantly tell who they are too. When I play with a melee player that knows that kind of thing, I'm like, I want to play with that guy, because that's the kind of player that'll see a necrotic bolt about to hit you in a necrotic wake. If you're like a third health, it's going to kill you, and they'll just stun it or fear it or something to prevent you from dying, because they know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Very valuable players.
To tie that back to the earlier topic of like doing keys slightly under geared, especially as a tank, it takes getting up to a pretty high key level before damage is the actual limiting factor. There's often things you can improve with your pulls, or even the efficiency of the pulls, like how spread out the mobs are when you need to kite. But being aware as a DPS player, they're like, hey, I know that my tank's under geared and they're probably going to need to kite a little bit early. So I'm going to do my damage maybe slightly earlier than it's optimal, or I'm going to like pre-rop here right before my cooldowns because I know they're probably going to run at some point. Which, yes, it's not 100% optimal for damage output. But like I said, until you get up to those really, really cutting edge keys, damage is not, the bottom line in terms of fully optimizing your characters. Of course, we're talking about high-end play. Damage tends to be an issue at some middle tiers, but improving your play can definitely be a lot more valuable than damage output.
Yeah. Just skip the tormented mobs. That's the biggest way to save time.
All right, Tettles, let's take a look at your clip of the week, which comes from PTR testing earlier today. This is my stream.
I think Vengeance needs a nerf, and this is why.
I don't think so.
This is unacceptable that Vengeance Demon Hunter is able to face tank and solo a boss that 19 other players are dead for.
I don't know. I think they could have just played around it and just played better. That's been the theme of our episode today.
Yeah, maybe the mob should have done a better strat here.
Yeah.
Stars on star?
Stars on star. We stopped. We didn't even use that strategy this time. You can't on Mythic because there's an AoE around you when you drop it. It's a big shame. Yeah.
Yeah, this tier set looks fine. I think this is totally fine.
This is the nerfed tier set as well. There was a similar clip from this boss the last time it was being tested where I was just had my back turned and was sitting down and was dying. This time I had to be pressing my buttons to not die. So you can see that it's a fixed tier set now by comparison.
You guys almost killed this boss, right?
We got it to like 8% or something. We could have killed it. We wanted to test. But yeah,
the manually reapply MO Aura. It's just egregious what they're asking you to do.
It's so messed up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, the first couple pulls today, I was being really bad about it. I pressed my MO Aura once in full, and I wasn't pressing it later because I was just so used to the old set bonus. But yeah. That boss much easier than the other ones that we've tested so far.
Is it due to the fact that you have 2 legendaries now?
Oh, maybe the 2 legendary power spike was part of it, which segues us nicely into our next discussion, which some would have guessed would be would have guessed that it was going to be at the 32-minute mark. That was foolish. It is actually at the 1-hour mark, which is the the discussion about new stuff coming next patch. So we already covered some of this. We won't talk anymore about the conduit upgrader thing, but the conduit or the tier sets drops information is something to cover. We'll talk about that, but let's talk about the double legendaries first, because that is the the thing we were just talking about, which is that the double legendaries. It's that belt slot. Although if you want to craft it on a different armor slot, the memory is available, and you can just craft it onto any slot. But it does require Revered with the Enlightened, which is the main faction in Zereth Mortis, before you can get this. You get both the belt and the rune carving power, which lets you put it on something other than a belt. So the amount of time to get this and the exact process by which you get it, there's been a bunch of different reports. I think the best one has been, there's a Wowhead post that had it at 20 something days.
23, and tweeted it out, and him and Neri from Wowhead always end up testing these systems.
It's worth noting that these predictions often don't actually line up with, like, they're just these non-data mined quests that start, the week 2 quest, the week 3 quest usually aren't data mined, and those sometimes have a bunch of rep or something.
Yeah.
Like there have been systems like that those have thrown huge wrenches into. But yeah, as of right now, 23 days is the middle of Mythic Week, right?
That's with you if you have like rep tokens for your dailies and stuff like that. I think it's like 28 if you
so
do like a little minimal.
The bad news for this is that the process of getting this is never miss a daily quest, right? If you're trying to get this as fast as possible, like never miss a Zereth Mortis daily, and it's also do every single Shadowlands world quest with a contract for Enlightened rep active on your character, or something like that.
You can't get the contracts until after somebody has already hit Revered. And
no, like I heard the contract was friendly for this faction.
I heard it was. Well, no.
I could be mistaken.
There's something. Hold on, I had the.
Anyways, whatever the exact way that it works on PTR as well, like there's obviously a huge amount of time
to
before
use
this
it.
release.
It's friendly.
Well. Okay.
To use it, it's friendly. To craft it,
the pattern is still Revered. Interesting. Okay.
That's what I understood. That could be just completely made up though.
Yeah, I heard something about it being friendly this time, but maybe it's just somebody misreading and seeing the use and not the pattern purchase.
Yes. I think it's to use as friendly. I think the pattern purchase is still higher.
That's good. So either way, obviously there's still a lot of uncertainty about exactly what, whether it makes it to live in that state or plus or minus a couple days. But I don't know. I it's not something I feel great about. Is particularly like the system, the way they do these recently, where it's like you have to log in every single day, right, to get these things as soon as possible, and you have to do like just a bunch, especially Korthia, man, where it's like, man, if you want to get your Korthia stuff as soon as possible, you just like log in every day, kill every single rare in the zone, open 5 nests all across the zone, kill 4 relic gorgers, which I didn't even do that, but that was the Limited Echo people did, right? And get all the mushrooms and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. I hate that style of grind. I don't actually hate the idea of not getting the legendary belt instantly. I understand not getting it instantly, and I understand having to do some stuff to get it as well. But the particular style of daily grind that we've had in the mod and Korthia, I really hope it's not like that again.
So is this just 5 quests a day though? Is it not like killing rares and waiting forever, doing nothing, watching the map?
A guildie told me that they looted a treasure chest in Zereth Mortis and got a rep item out of it, but I don't know exactly how it's going to work, because a lot of the other stuff I've seen has been talking about just the quests.
So my biggest issue with this whole entire thing is, 1, how big the power spike is from getting second legendary, and 2, how long it's going to take. Obviously, we said 28 days at max. That's if you're doing all the quests and stuff like that, and you're not like treasure chest farming for the rep tokens. But like, can you imagine saying to somebody who like will start the patch a little bit late, or somebody who's only going to play like 3 to 4 days a week? Yeah, so it is 28 days of logging in and doing the content.
28 working days. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's 28
that's
working days, and like we're going to be playing the game enough to where we get it probably on like the 24th day or something, right? Because we're all cringe like that. But like,
not Greg.
For those who
the other 3 of us are.
I might get it on the 27th day.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Same. Actually,
but the fact that like you have to log in every single day, is just way too much for me. And it's just like the amount of time that you have to spend seems just so far-fetched for a system that, in my opinion, should be available on patch launch. I don't like how they're gating systems behind dailies. And I understand if you have to do something for it, but why can't this be a 3-hour quest chain? Why does this have to be 28 days of dailies?
Yeah, I feel like that 28-day mark should have been some other slight power increase or something, you know, to nerf the raid, because the double legendary is the appeal of the patch.
The
for returning
conduits.
players.
The conduit upgrade could literally be the 28-day thing. And like,
Yeah,
okay,
they could have put conduits at Revere. That would have been insanely nice for me at least.
I don't know. I actually don't mind it not being on launch, and I kind of like the idea of a big power spike coming during the raid. But I think that they have the technology to do that without it being a really annoying daily grind, right? You could do it with weekly quests. You could just do it by having chapters of the storyline that, you know, this comes
Once
after
a
you do
week.
chapter 4 of the storyline or whatever, right? Like
Yep.
they have the technology for it to be done in a much less painful way than Corthiaing it. So I'm sad that they've chosen not to do that.
I've seen a lot of people who have taken breaks from the game talk about like potentially wanting to come back in 9.2, and then they saw that the double legendary thing takes 28 working days of doing rep or 23 working days of doing rep, and they're like, absolutely fucking not. I'm better off just not playing. And like
Yeah.
that's a sad state of affairs if your initial reaction is like, okay, I really want to jump back into the game, and then you see something, you're like, oh, I'm going to be gated. And it's like a massive power spike. It's not just like it's not a trivial amount of damage. That is a massive power spike, and they're like, okay, never mind, I don't want to do it. And it's great that it's already active on alts. Like that is something that should not be lost on this. Is like, this is already designed in a way where it's alt friendly. That's really good. At the same time, it shouldn't be as arduous of a grind, in my opinion.
Not only the power spike component of it, like obviously that's relevant, but for a lot of specs and classes, this could change the way that they play.
Yeah.
And so that in itself is appealing. Like people often will come try a new expansion because their favorite class got reworked and they want to see how it plays. Double legendaries and tier set combo can, you know, more than likely is changing most specs in the game to play differently. So that's very appealing too, and to also wall that off.
Yeah, and on that article, like it says that it takes somewhere around 10 to 25 minutes a day, but it's not an issue of like how much time it takes to do it on like per day basis. It's also an issue of like having to log in every single day, in my mind.
Yeah, I think that if there were some way of like one thing that emissaries did, which is really nice, is like, hey, you know, this is a daily reward, but if you log in 3 days in the week, right, you can do the emissaries from 2 days ago, right, and that
Yeah.
still
That's a good
works.
point.
I liked the way that system took a daily, you know, incentive. And hey, logging in every day to do all the world quests was an extra bonus, right? But the big meat of the emissary rewards, right, with the big legendary role in Legion, was as long as you could log in a third as often and for 3 times as long and get it that way. And I wish they would design these systems that way instead of just the full on daily, you know, no wiggle to do a little bit less today, a
Yeah.
little bit more tomorrow.
And I was also trying to think of other systems that did that better, and I think the artifact knowledge system in BFA was better as well, because it would give catch up to players returning late or that were gone for a week on vacation. Like the next week they returned, they would get more artifact power than the previous week
Right.
overall, because of the way it ramped up. Like if there was something like that for reputation, maybe that would help this situation, although I don't know if you can implement that for reputation easily.
I also think that we should mention the Morgan Day starting zone stuff that apparently got misconstrued.
Yeah, so this was the interview with Morgan Day on the Starting Zone podcast. So he was talking about the Cipher of the First One system being not tied to player power at all, not something that if you're a rating player you had to worry about, which is true. But this is the Enlightened rep, which is a different thing. And so that is tied to player power. Outdoor Zereth Mortis is tied to player power through the Enlightened rep and through this. Now, I've seen a couple different takes on this. One is like, yeah, see, you idiots, right? He was actually right. You know, he's talking about a different system, which is technically true, but I think in these interviews, right, he's introducing these terms all for the first time, right? And I think people heard what a sentiment in there, right, which is that it wasn't going to be tied to player power, right? And there's like, oh, we're introducing the Cypher the First One system, the Enlightened Rep, Zareth Mortis, right? And people conflate all those together and assumed that he was talking about all of those. So is he wrong? I mean, yeah. He's not wrong, but I do think that if this is Blizzard turning over a new leaf in transparency and communication, I'm not too sold on it, especially because I feel like the reports quickly telephoned into no player power from Zareth Mortis, right? That was like a headline you were seeing around places, which, again, those people had the wrong headline, right? But Blizzard could see that, and I think I would have liked to see Blizzard say, that's not what we said, right? I'd like to see Blizzard 2 months ago, instead of kind of riding this hype train about no player power in Zareth Mortis, instead being like, well, no player power in Cypher the First Ones, but there are other systems that, of course, it's an RPG. We want and they could give their line there. Or if it's a case of like later on they decided they wanted this to have player power and they didn't know they wanted it at the time, I think that's also reasonable to be like, yeah, hey, we changed our intention about this. That happens during dev cycles. I don't think that's what happened this time though. I think it was just a case of like this was the plan all along and the interview got misconstrued, but.
Yeah, I think it makes sense that you have to like do something to be able to unlock double legendaries. Like, don't ever get me wrong. I think it makes sense, especially with like how WoW has been structured and like how WoW has functioned for a very long time. It makes sense that you have to do something to be able to unlock the double legendaries. I think the biggest problem I ultimately have with it isn't even the communication. It's like how long the grind really is. I think that's like my biggest issue, and the type of grind it is.
Is it weird if I hear like a 23-day grind or whatever? I'm like, oh, thank God. Thank God it's not the Korthia 2 months again.
Only 23 days.
Only 23 days. We're saved.
But yeah, no, that's good.
Is Cypher the First One's not the system that's going to be used to convert things into tier items? Or has that not been discussed?
That's the Creation Forge thing, which also they haven't talked anymore about exactly how we get that or anything like that.
You buy them off a vendor.
That's
a really important one.
Saving grace for my next patch is... I mean, sure, I'll maybe pug normal or whatever just to get the tier set effects, but if the way that I can get tier pieces at a higher item level, if the only way is through this creation catalyst thing, I hope it's good.
Yeah, my understanding of it is like it's just kind of flat time gated and not daily grind time gated, which sounds good to me. I prefer that. We're just some point into the patch you'll unlock it, but yeah. We don't know. We don't know the details on that one yet either.
I think the last thing that we should hit on is the additional tier drops from raid, and then we can.
Yeah, and there's the BOEs as well. The BOEs in the tier set pieces, which.
Whew. Oh, that's also a thing too. That's not what I was referring to. I was referring to the additional loot. So there, from what I understand, you're getting more pieces of loot that are dropping from bosses.
Where's the source tier drops per bosses?
I think that's it, is it not?
So what do you mean by additional pieces of loot?
You're not looking at the right thing.
Okay.
I have it highlighted. I have it highlighted in our document right now.
Tier pieces just like drop on a different roll chance than the
tier drops is extra loot. Okay. Number of drops. This is subject to further change on PTR, but from each of these bosses, it looks like 4 pieces of tier on Mythic will drop as extra loot. Based on today's raid testing, when defeating each tier boss, you should get 4 pieces of tier gear plus 4 pieces of regular gear.
That actually
that's
really nice.
That's sweet.
So, whenever they said that they wanted raiders to feel like they could do something to get their tier gear faster, I didn't actually know what this meant, and I didn't know how to interpret it. I just assumed it was going to be like normal. But I'm so down for them to be doing it like this. I mean, this is fine, especially if the system for being able to get it for people that are like Greg is relatively fast. Then doing it like this system makes sense.
Dude, I don't know about it being you get all these bonus loot and they're tradable though. Oh man, that's gonna make splits so good.
I fucking hate splits, man.
That's true.
That's gonna make them so much better than usual.
My guild's gonna end up doing splits because of this cringe shit. Dude, okay, also, let's talk about the BOE thing. Do you want to explain that?
Yeah, so, if tier is tradable, this is big news. hopefully tier's just not going to be tradable if it's just going to be extra loot that drops from bosses. Hopefully they just make it not tradable, and that would fix that part of it. But it would also fix the part where there's BOE items next tier that are going to be in the tier slots as well. A lot of the tier slots will have BOE items in them as well. So purchasing a mythic BOE so that you can get your alt to be tradable on that slot, so you can trade a tier piece if it drops for you, is going to be a nightmarish reality for the top however many guilds out there, which, I don't know. I mean, to some extent, top guilds inflict nightmarish realities on themselves and will always do that, but when there are systems like this, it reaches down to my guild. When there aren't systems like this, it's like it's only the top 5 guilds that have to worry about it, which is I obviously prefer that.
If it's just them doing degenerate splits, so be it. But once it starts to like reach our level guilds, you're like, okay, there's a fundamental problem here with how this is set up.
Let's not
kind of similar to
not group my guild and your
corruption.
guild titles. We've got the Hall of Fame tier, and then we've got the Hall of Fame aspirant tier.
This feels like kind of similar to corruption, where you'd have to just okay, definitely to a lesser degree. This is not as bad as corruption, but it's getting there.
Yeah, I'm a little bit tentative about this, but I mean, in general, I think the main news of the tier drops in abundance, rather than the old system of like you'd have a tier boss and it would drop 0 to 1 pieces of tier, right, or 0 to 2. You know, now it's like they will always drop you 4, and you get the regular gear as well. Like that sounds pretty great. So
I guess the tier could be tradable, but like it shouldn't be tradable due to a BOE, right? It should only be tradable if you already have that tier piece.
Even then, the fact that it's like class locked items, that introduces some annoying incentives on that
there's no
on
tokens,
that side,
right?
Yeah, because it's not token based. It's not tokenized. It's just the actual items drop. So I don't know.
With the creation catalyst, doesn't that mean that you can have BOE tier pieces? Like you buy one of those slots and then you go tierify it or whatever?
My understanding is that you can't use the creation catalyst on BOEs, but that understanding is based on very little. That was
Gotcha.
the language is just like PvP and M+ gear can be turned into tier with the creation catalyst. But man, if you could use that on BOEs, that would be crazy.
You know, I think this is gonna, since there's no tokens, I just thought of this, like the single classes, like monk, warrior, that you only want one of in the group.
Yeah.
In some raid
Yeah,
tiers.
those people are going to be stuck with like 2 gloves and no shoulders, whereas the druids are going to be fine. They're going to trade with each other and it's going to be all fine.
Fucking gang shit.
My fervent
Guardian
hope
druids.
is that it's a 1 druid tier and it's not a moonkin.
Dude, I love Guardian and Resto druids, especially whenever they just give me all of their loot. Especially that J.B fellow. It's so nice to take loot from him and give to myself.
I feel like we're not gonna see that many guardian druids or resto druids.
Dude, speaking of
they're
druids,
both really good.
Feral is also kind of sick with it. I don't know.
Dude, all of the simp. I mean, okay, so the simp Guardian and simp Resto, I feel like are both very strong next tier.
Dude, just Kyrian Moonkin also like.
Yeah, I mean,
full
obviously
on.
Kyrian Moonkin.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I actually wonder if it's worth running guardian druid just because of that over debuff tanks.
I mean, Brew is broken. Brew is by far the best tank next patch, right now.
I don't know, Vengeance is pretty
a
cool.
lot of them have some insane tier sets. I
That
think
4 set is gross.
Blood Decay also has like Knife Fey. Blood Decay is unkillable right now. I don't know. They probably don't do enough damage, but like a bunch of tanks have insane tier sets, so it's
like
kinda
half
up
the
in
bosses we've tested so far, Grip has been insane on though. I don't know. I
That's true.
by far, I think the best part about Shadowlands has been just how incredible they've done the tank balance. Like there's been either 5 or 6 great tanks all expansion long, and I think it's going to be 6 next tier as well.
Dude, I still see people complaining about class balance on Twitter. Do you think that like there's ever like a point where people will stop complaining about balance, even though this is probably the best expansion we've ever seen for balancing?
I said tank balance to be clear. You know, there's some
DPS
parts I don't want to defend.
DPS balance is not even bad. Healer balance is still
Healer.
fucking
Yeah,
scary.
I was thinking healers.
Healers have always been awful.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think people will ever stop complaining about balance, but I do think that tank balance is really, really good right now. I think we're living in an oasis.
Yeah. Do you think that it would make so if they balanced strictly off data and like it wasn't even like a decision, it was just based off of data that they were compiling, they just like hit things in like small increments of like 0.2, 0.1% nerfs like every single day or buffs or whatever? Do you think that would make people feel better?
I don't think that would be a good way to balance an MMO for most people. I think it would probably work better for us, but
I actually think it would be less fun. I think it would be less fun to have stuff that's completely balanced.
I don't know. I mean, I think stuff like tanks that are really balanced, but because they each have different strengths, is really good. But it's harder to do that with DPS because DPS is so much more about just like the number at the end of the day.
Yeah, that's the problem. I mean, it's hard enough to balance single target, which is always off a little bit every tier. But then the biggest thing, in my opinion, is the AoE capability or funnel capability from each different spec. You know, some specs can't funnel at all, some specs can't do AoE hardly, but they're relatively close on single target because that's how they're balanced. I think if they were all tuned a little bit better for AoE situations, I think it'd be a little bit more fun, and that would also keep more classes popular so they'd have more data for them. But I don't know, just my opinion.
Greg, have you liked the tank balance this expansion? Is that do you agree with me that that's been good times?
It's been a lot of fun. I haven't played all of them at a decent level, but season 1 I played Bear, Prot, Warrior, Demon Hunter, and then season 2 played Bear and Prop Pally, and they've all felt pretty good. I've done like alt keys and 20s and whatever on like Bloody K and Demon Hunter and Warrior. Yeah, it's really refreshing actually. I mean, just to pull up the Raider IO first 3 pages or whatever, and filtering out the fact that Andy's like all of them. There's a pretty good representation at just below the rank 1 slot.
Yeah, I can actually do that. We can just look at the characters of top tanks, right? And it's like, yeah, okay, Captain Rogers' head and shoulders here, but yeah, I mean, this is what you have to go pretty far down to find the warrior, but all the others are up here on the first page in multiples, right? Which is
even Great Push. We saw infinite tank representation, and it was on a per dungeon basis.
Right? Yeah, I think we saw 4 or 5 of the tanks in the Great Push, something like that, which is completely crazy, right? I mean, compare these colors to what was it, BFA BFA season 4.
Nice.
Okay, check page 2. Check page 2. See if we see another, or if it's just Dorky in the top 40. Okay, we're getting some Brewmasters.
We got podcast host Trell Brew up on there as well.
Oh, poggers.
This is back. You had Yoda War.
He outscored the now from KR Ashara. Different now.
Now. That's 2 V's. That's not a W.
Yeah.
Sneaky.
Yeah. So I don't know. Tank balance owns. Anyways, we've exhausted our rambling quota for the week. We're running a bit over time, so let's do the thanking the patrons, and then we got a couple Q&A questions, and then we will get out of here. Our wonderful.
Into that. I have something funny. Evade hit me with a DM mid pod, and he's like, "Can't believe you purposely wore shit gear this whole time. You fooled me."
All right. Our wonderful patrons include put up the Moist Kermit of US Tichondrius. My Rafflecopter has entered the server. Schwa 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 schwa. Overtime season is coming to an end soon, TM. Maybe I can finally play WoW again. Ja, Dratnos' Dino Pillow, Chromed, Trekkie, Tettle's Catfisher, Chewy, 9.2 M plus affix, is Zareth D's Nuts, where your Covenant bonus doesn't work after plus 10. That would be kind of interesting, actually, if they disabled the Covenant abilities this season. I don't think they need to this season, though, now that you can just swap. Delete Gaming is ready to delete this year. It's not AMZ, it's AMZ. Salty Senny, Necris, Tankdil, Neverick, Bradceratops, Sinmora, Eevee, Survival Main, No Trick, I Scheduled Heddle's Flame, Dimat, Lufer, Friend, Fire and Frost, and Arcane, oh my. Gallic, Brusif, Dratnotards Abyss, Purple Infernals, PogChamp, M-Sanity, Xena, Rogue is not good enough for Prog, still bad enough to be sat for SLG, bless up. Red Color, youtube.com/workbringer, KOZ's Mythic Team is Trash Cans and not Trash Cants, Alphabet Soup, Druid Friends of Evolved Gaming. Number 1, Simpsky for Trelsky. The attitude during our key runs is usually, Lurka is in the group, he's doing his best until the Plague Rock kills him. This is especially funny when it happens in other dungeons besides Plaguefall. How does that even happen? I got flamed for not interrupting in Arathi Basin Comstock.
Introduce you to Bone Claw.
Bone Claw?
Yep.
What's that?
It's a Necrotic Wake Vanguard. Stitched Vanguard.
Okay.
Yeah. I imagine he's talking about the Plague Rock. Oh, he's probably talking about the frontal. I was thinking he meant the Blighted Beak or whatever that is, the Fervent.
Yeah, that Fervent from the Vanguard does kill people quite often, though.
Milk, 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 milk. Soji is the number 1 little green man on US Thrall. Word around the Mage Tower is Trell has fantastic eyeballs and is now 3k. Sifei, Pone, Windwalker monks deal with nerfs by rolling with the punches. Argent Donnie EU Goldshire regular. Praise Ian, creator of the systems, and Wonder. Thanks all for the continued support. Let's move on to our Q&A segment. Our first question comes from Flem, who asks, I personally am in an AOTC guild with my friends, and only a select few of us actually push 20 plus keys. My questions, have you found more success in some patches than others? So like the shard system in 9.1 being a problem. And what would you like to see to make the M plus only approach more consistent?
Yeah, so the first part of the question, definitely in success in some patches compared to others, not so much pertaining to the M plus only approach, but as we mentioned in the pod, RBG Season 1, incredibly lucrative, especially for tank gearing, and itemization was basically perfect. So that was a lot easier for me to fully gear at like exact same item level, minus the few 233s, unless you got 2400 in which you can get the weapons. But you obviously missed the trinkets and whatnot.
But you still got a really high score this season, even with the shards and stuff, right?
Yeah, around like 2900. So it's better some seasons than others in terms of the gear, not necessarily my performance, but in terms of the gear. What would I like to see to make M plus only more consistent? There's definitely some flushing out of like what the system specifics would look like, but as primarily Mythic Plus person, I think it'd be cool to see some sort of higher than 2k score barrier to upgrade gear a little bit. Of course, there would need to be a lot of like guardrails in place because Mythic Plus is spammable, right? You can target loot pretty aggressively, and you're not on a weekly lockout like you are with Raid. And I don't know how they would do it. Maybe it's Valor cap, or it's a different currency above a certain key level that you can only get a certain amount of, and after like 4 weeks of getting currency from 25 plus keys, you can like upgrade one piece to Mythic Raid level. I don't know how it would work. I don't know how the system would work, but some amount of acknowledging that a higher key could maybe result in a higher piece of gear. I'd be totally fine if it's at a way slower pace than Mythic Raid, like aggressively slower, but as long as it's eventually possible.
Like deterministically rather than just randomly through the Great Vault?
Yeah, I mean, still random in the fact that you're dropping gear from Mythic Plus, right? But to get, say I want to upgrade my scale to 252, and I don't want to just RNG it out of the vault. Of course, you could RNG it out of the vault, or you could farm this new currency in this hypothetical world. You could farm this 25 plus currency for 4 weeks and then upgrade your scale 6 item level.
Alternatively, I mean, it could just take 3 full weeks of Valor, like some just absurd amount of Valor, right? So then it's like aggressively slow, but then at least you're able to target it in some meaningful way, and it's not just gated behind 25s. But
yeah, because I think the hesitancy, overwhelmingly the hesitancy to making Mythic Plus able to reach the same level as PvP or Mythic Raid more specifically, is just the farmability and like targetability of certain pieces, and how it would be way easier to do than Mythic Raid.
I feel like the only way to do that for them would be to do the same thing they do with PvP gearing, is where there's a specific dungeon eye level on gear, and it's different outside of dungeons, so you can farm it infinitely, but you can maybe have the same 259 pieces that the Raiders have if you're a dungeon only player with this system, and it doesn't affect the rest of the WoW world.
I feel like they're hesitant to do something like that though, because it's just really annoying to have a different BIS gear set between your keys and your your raid, right? Like different. I've got to change my shoulder pads, right? Because the 246 ones with the M plus bonus are better than the 252 ones in raid. Obviously, they ended up doing that for PvP, and I think it worked out well there. But I think they're going to be extremely hesitant before they do that for another system. Although I do think it would definitely make the M plus only lifestyle a lot better. Obviously, a lot more compatible.
Yeah,
with,
I mean, I don't think they would do it either anytime soon, but I feel like that's the only way they could actually accomplish that equality of gearing.
I've advocated for trophies to be something that drops fairly frequently from the Great Vault, where it's just like you're maybe, I don't know, 30% chance for each of your M plus Great Vault slots to contain a trophy that just lets you upgrade any M plus item to 252 or the equivalent. I feel like that would be a way to do it fairly, and that would let you get your scale, but it would come at a cost, and it would be slow.
Or they already have the token currency. You can make 12 of those currency. You could buy a trophy from the vendor.
That would be even slower, but yeah, I mean, for a lot of people, right? It's just like I
again,
want this
speed is not important
to
to me. It's really demoralizing and the reason I held off so long on making a DPS alt is I know that I'm gonna be, at best 8% worse than a full mythic geared person with full sockets and everything, and that's at most.
That's
right now,
once you've done 3 months of getting Great Vault gear and stuff. Yeah,
my Windwalker now is probably 12% behind BIS.
Yeah.
So it was just such a demoralizing barrier, even though you can feasibly do pretty high dungeon content being that behind. It's just demoralizing to be why should I even start this? I'm never going to be able to reach the highest level in terms of item level.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, you've obviously got the skill to play at the highest cutting edge level in dungeons, but you don't have the gear on some of these characters, so you can't as a DPS. It's a sad barrier.
Our next question comes from Twitch chat from Taboo34, who asks, "Can we get some 9.2 release date predictions?" So let's just make this. Everybody give us one date with your current prediction for when 9.2 releases. For reference, in February, if this is relevant information, the Tuesdays start on the 1st. So 1st, 8th, 15th, 22nd are some valid February options. If anybody has a February prediction,
I think the 8th is probably the most likely date for me.
Of when the patch drops? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Yeah, not the raid opening.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with 15th.
I'll take February 1st. You have
Really?
22nd?
Oh, you're going the other way.
Dude, that gives us all 4 of the weeks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
I
it.
think
I think
earlier than it is later.
I don't know. I mean,
So in Dranos's perspective, do you expect on the 18th, when they said you can't transfer for M plus titles anymore, that on the 18th they're gonna come and say okay, the season's ending in 2 weeks?
yeah.
Wait, wouldn't they need to say it before that? Because isn't there season ends and then there's downtime, or is the downtime when the new patch comes out?
I think the postseason. I think the postseason is when the new patch comes out, but before that first week of the new patch or something. It's it's been 1 week long the last 2 times or something, and it was 2 weeks long most of BFA. I don't know. My guess is I think early, because they're just they're ramping up stuff. They've been talking about the signing up for esports, right? Giving fairly soon times about that. I actually can't find it in this post, but there was some time they said
About the classic tournament.
not even just the for MDI, right? They said some time about
March 30th.
Yeah, March 30th you can sign up for time trials. So I don't know, that usually I wouldn't think that it, if the patch came out on the 22nd, right? So the Mythic Raid came out then March 10th or something, right? March 8th with that. And then it was 3 weeks until time trials. I guess time trials can register starting then. So no, it's beginning today. You can register, and the time trials start on March 30th. So yeah,
That seems so doomed if they have them starting on March 30th.
I mean, I wouldn't say they would never do that, right? They've done Scuffer MDI raid timings in the past, but
Scuffer.
that makes me think that it's coming soon. It's coming soon, the patch and the raid. So I'm going February 1st, but I think all February Tuesdays are reasonable guesses.
I'd be down. I'm happy to be wrong.
It's really annoying though, because man, that means Elden Ring, Lost Ark, PoE
Path of
3.17, all of these just bangers are going to be subsumed by a raid, and then there's just going to be a year-long content drought until the next expansion, while all these games will have launched in February with the patch. No, not like this. And our final question, though, comes from Spen in Twitch chat, who asks, "Can you ask Greg to show belly, please?"
That's a different podcast.
And on that, we will be back next
Good answer.
week. Thanks for coming on the show, Greg. I know you don't have any social media to plug, but just in case you've changed your mind, this is your opportunity to plug anything you want to plug.
Sure, I guess my Twitch is just Greg was taken because I
Greg
wanted
was
to make
taken?
it
Just Greg.
Just Greg.
Greg?
was taken.
Just
It's
Greg was
bad.
taken.
I'm
Okay.
aware of how bad it was, and I've spent way too much time with that like username box selected and focused and tried to come up with a different one. Unfortunately, that's what we got right now. So
I know that that feeling of trying to come up with a name for something just for an
if anyone
hour.
listening can pull some strings at Twitch and probably get the person removed with /Greg and I don't know, change mine, I'd be okay with that.
That'd be pretty cool, yeah.
And Twitter and YouTube. just
Yeah.
Greg.
Can I get @Tittles on Twitter, please?
We'll be back next week with another one, though. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Later.